Hi, I'm Mokoso, and I'm your host for the Share My Experience podcast. Oh no, not another feminist, I thought, as she continued to talk, gesticulating wildly with her hands and moving her head and neck as if she was acting in a movie. This one has clearly watched one too many Tyler Perry movies. I wonder why these girls think that the whole angry Black American narrative is cute. Ordinarily, I would have found an excuse and ended this date in a hurry. But she's cute, and I'm pretty confident that I have a chance with her tonight. The ones that like to talk a big game are the ones that end up in my bed at the end of the night. So he smiled as he thought this and saw her expression change and become softer. She probably thought that he was appreciating the point he was making about submission being obsolete. She was going on and on about how certain lines would be removed from her wedding vows. He smiled. He liked them feisty. It gave him a thrill because he knew that it was only a matter of time before he calmed and tamed them to become putty in his hands. In his opinion, this generation of women felt like they could act out of control, but he had taken it upon himself to make sure that they knew who was in charge whenever he was involved with them. The feminists, those were the worst ones, always talking a big game and harping on about equality and doing what a man can do even better. It was not only unnecessary, but also outlandish. Gosh, he couldn't stand them. A woman should know her place always. It was not the natural order of things for a woman to try to claim equality, or worse, control over a man. They ought to be gentle, nurturing, warm and comforting, and let a man be a man. After all, God created Adam first, and then he made Eve out of his rib to be his helper. This generation of women had no interest in helping. Instead, they were obsessed with leading at home, at work, in church, everywhere. He couldn't fathom how things could change so drastically from the original plan. Staring back at the woman sitting across from him at the restaurant where they were having a meal, he knew how to deal with this undeniably alluring but insufferable creature. He could never resist the challenge whenever he encountered one of these bra-burning feminists. This one appeared special. She reminded him of her. When he'd seen her and her friends at the bar, he had done a double take. He watched her closely, intrigued at how two completely unrelated people could look so alike and even have the same mannerisms. Yeah, sure, this one looked younger than her, but the way she smiled and cocked her head to the side was so reminiscent of her. He looked at her outfit and immediately noticed that even their styles were similar. She was wearing a pair of shoes that were familiar to him. He'd seen them almost every day at the side of the walk-in closet in their home. The feelings rushed at him all at once. The now familiar dull ache in his chest whenever he thought about her, quickly replaced by the rage mixed with confusion and shame that he unsuccessfully tried to suppress. He was intrigued and immediately decided that this one he wanted, and he would do absolutely anything to get her. So he hit her with his disarming, boyish grin and asked, "Do you want to go somewhere a little quiet so we can talk a bit more and get to know each other?" Growing up surrounded by women had made him an expert in understanding them and also taught him how to get them to do whatever he wanted. He hated the term manipulate. He preferred saying that he knew how to motivate women. He'd never met his mother. She had died mere minutes after giving birth to him from birth complications. As a teenager, he'd spend endless hours on Google trying to find out all the possible causes of postpartum death to try and figure out why she died. His father never liked to talk about it and always acted weird when he tried to ask questions. And the more he wanted to know about the mother that he never met, the more he was met with silence. The feeling that he had somehow been responsible for his mother's death was one that he carried around secretly. He had carried this around since he was a child, especially when he realized that his mother had died while giving birth to him. Even though he had not found anything on Google to suggest this, he couldn't shake the thoughts that came to his mind sometimes. Did she die because of me? Did she die because I was an evil child? He often thought. While he was bounced around from one relative's house to the other, he'd subconsciously built up walls to shield himself. Although he couldn't explain it at the time, he felt a sense of rejection from everyone. His father for not wanting him, his siblings for not loving him, his aunts, uncles, and cousins for making him feel like an outsider. However, he had a friend, an imaginary friend, Bobo. Bobo was the only one that understood him. He went with him wherever he went. It was Bobo that listened when he talked and understood his feelings. It was Bobo who played explorer and hide and seek with him when he was all alone with no other playmates. He'd grown up believing that he was different and mysterious, and that he and Bobo were an unstoppable team. Sure, he was surrounded by women. He was attractive and charming enough to always have one or more at his beck and call. But they were just such simple creatures, so easy to get, especially the so-called independent women. Now these were his favorite kind. His girlfriend of 12 years, and now the mother of his daughter, suddenly woke up one day and left him. One day, while he was at work, she took everything, including his child, and moved out. He didn't see it coming. The weeks afterward were harrowing, simply the lowest points of his life. But he didn't go after her. No, she should be the one to humble herself and come back to me, he thought. After all, he had done nothing but love and take care of her. And when he told her this, her response both shocked and angered him. He couldn't believe that during the family meeting organized by both parents to try and get them to reconcile, she kept using words he had never heard her say to him before to describe him. Narcissist, misogynist, emotional abuser, mental torturer, and other phrases that he'd rather not remember. Women are such ungrateful creatures. A man could invest all he had in her, and she'll turn around and disrespect him in front of the people that he cared most about. How could she say such things in front of everyone? Okay, so he got angry sometimes and yelled at her. And yes, maybe he had held her face a little too tightly when he was making a point, or shoved her a time or two. It's not like he had ever hit her before. He wasn't a woman beater. After all, everyone got angry every now and again. And so what if he once threatened to throw her off the balcony of their apartment? Surely, she knew he didn't mean it. Why was she making him out to be the villain? It's not like she was totally innocent and had never done anything wrong. This betrayal was the worst he had ever felt. She was the closest person to him, the only one he had ever told his deepest, darkest secrets. She practically knew everything about his pain. And now she felt she could turn around and air all their laundry in public like this. I can't believe it, he thought. The same woman who had listened to him bare his soul and in tears held his head in her lap and swore never to leave him. She's the same one who just did that. Even though that it appeared that she had left quietly, she was unaware that she had left a trail of blood, guts, and a whole carcass behind. Women cannot be trusted. They are treacherous, mean, and cold-hearted. That's why I'll never let another one close to me. I'm surrounded by women, but none of them really have my heart. Just like the expression says, water, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. And here's the afterword. The effects of maternal death are more far-reaching than the physical loss for all involved. They are realities that affect the child, who is a product of the tragedy. Not only do they come into this world amid mourning and devastation, but they could also grow up subconsciously carrying guilt that is either self-imposed or projected onto them by the immediate family members and friends. There's a lot of toxicity associated with mommy issues in men, and these are usually crystallized in their formative years and build on healthy attachment styles in many men, especially when they are teenagers. Usually, there's an expectation that romantic partners will provide more than a fair share of household labor or emotional support. They typically develop trust issues or have difficulty showing vulnerability and a strong need for affection and approval, or difficulty showing affection or rapid shifts between the two. The form of involuntary abandonment described in this story can leave an indelible mark on children, and so it's important to ensure that they are intentionally surrounded by love and constantly reassured of their worth and value, especially by immediate members of the family. There's a story in the Bible, in Genesis 35:18. Rachel died while giving birth to their baby boy. Before dying, she named the boy Benoni. Benoni means son of my suffering. She had obviously named him based on the circumstances that she had faced in the course of his birth. And then she died. But Jacob called him Benjamin, which means son of my right hand or favorite son. Now, what you call a child is important, and not just by name. This is a perfect example of how to begin to shape the life of an infant with the right narrative to set the tone for them to grow and mature with the right mindset in cases of maternal death. I love you, and I'm praying for you.